There is something wrong in Seattle. After the first 8 weeks of the season, Russell Wilson seemed to be on a direct path towards his first MVP. However, over the past 5 weeks, and more specifically in his games against the Bills, the Rams, and the Giants, Wilson has seemed off. His play has been awful in those games. He doesn't look like the same quarterback we saw from earlier in the season. In this video, I wanted to figure out why. I wanted to see what happened, and I wanted to dive deep into possible ways that Wilson could fix this. To start this breakdown, I wanted to focus on his most recent game against the Giants. The themes I saw from that game are also themes I saw from his other games as well. To begin, my first main takeaway I had that led to a lot of these issues was the variety of coverages that the Giants played in this one. In the first 20 snaps of the game, I counted 12 different coverages in those plays alone. I saw cover 0, cover 1, cover 2 drop 8, cover 2 man, cover 3 drop 8, zone dog blitzes off of cover 3, cover 4 drop 8, cover 6, and even a variety of goal line coverages as well. What really impressed me was just how well the Giants were coached to play all those coverages. Their safeties were aggressive to drive on deeper routes, their linebackers did a fantastic job of carrying seams, their star cornerback James Bradbury did a decent job of covering DK Metcalf one-on-one, and their pass rush paired extremely well in all those types of coverages too. They created a ton of pressure on a 4-man rush while simultaneously mixing enough contained and delayed blitzes to keep Wilson in the pocket. All these combined together to form an excellent game plan against the Seahawks. We really need to give the Giants defensive coordinator Patrick Graham a lot of credit. Needless to say, this had a direct and tangible impact on Russell Wilson. On plays where Wilson would normally get through his reads, the pressure and simulated pressure while only rushing 3, it completely altered his process. It changed the way he normally would read plays. It forced him into poor decisions, and generally speaking, Wilson did not respond well to these situations. Now, we'll dive more into this in a minute, but before we do, I wanted to give a huge shout out to HelloFresh for sponsoring this week's video. HelloFresh is here to make eating better and easier. No grocery stores, no stressful meal planning, just everything you need to prepare a wholesome and delicious meal all delivered to your door. I honestly have no idea why I've waited so long to try it, but trust me, it was definitely worth it. This week, my wife and I tried the barbecue pork burgers, and they were mouth-watering good. The produce was fresh and had a ton of flavor, the meat was portioned perfectly with plenty for both of us to enjoy, and the recipe was so easy to follow and made the entire experience effortless. All their meals, just like this one, can be finished in just about 30 minutes. Now, not only was everything delicious and easy, but what honestly took the experience to the next level was just how flexible they are to fit your lifestyle. You can easily change your delivery days, and in general, HelloFresh just makes the entire process so simple that I strongly recommend you give them a try. If you go to HelloFresh.com and use my code GOLD80, you can get $80 off across 5 boxes, including free shipping on your first box. Again, go to HelloFresh.com and use my code GOLD80 to get $80 off across 5 boxes, including free shipping on your first box. As I mentioned a moment ago, Wilson did not respond well to this defense. A big takeaway I had was that the late post-snap rotations really screwed up his thought process and how he read his plays. Playing primarily out of a 2-high shell or rotating to this after starting from 1-high safety look before the snap, Wilson just didn't seem prepared. When he'd normally go through his progressions and make a throw like I've seen him make 1,000 times, he abandoned the process, he feared the rush, and he tried to run outside the pocket. Here's an example from the second quarter. Before the snap, the Giants started with a single high safety deep. The Seahawks motioned Tyler Lockett from the outside to a stacked alignment before the snap. Watch the defensive back at the bottom of your screen. Since he didn't trail, this is a pretty clear sign that Giants are in zone coverage. Looking at the defense and their alignment, it would be extremely reasonable for Wilson to assume the Giants were in cover 3. This defense featuring a 3-deep 4 underneath zone coverage is something he's seen a lot of this season. If this was their coverage, then Wilson can look at the post flat concept on the left. However, the Giants weren't in cover 3. They're actually in Tampa 2 on this one. While this defense has a similar 3-high shell structure, the difference is how the sideline zone defenders play this coverage. Instead of dropping deep into their zones, they stay tighter to the line of scrimmage and high-low the wide receivers hitting their side of the field. To counter this, let's pay close attention to the right side of the field. The 3-level concept that the Seahawks are running is really good to attack this. When you have a deep corner, a deep out, and a flat, you stretch the 2 defenders at the bottom and you create a gap on the sideline. This is exactly what happened here. This is where Wilson should have looked after that post-snap rotation. Now see what actually happened. After going through his reads on the left, Wilson instantly looked for an outlet to scramble. Even though he had plenty of time in the pocket, he never even entertained the idea that the right side of the field would be open. This is really bad. I've argued for years that Wilson is an incredible pocket passer, but for some reason, he completely forgot his fundamentals. He panicked when he should have remained calm in the pocket, and he should have found the open receiver on the right. Now, let me be clear on one thing before we move on from this play. Wilson did gain 7 yards in this one. Gaining 7 on first down should never be a negative. However, my argument is very simple. Throughout this game, Wilson consistently passed up design plays like this one that were open. He could have gotten more than 7 yards on this play pretty easily. To illustrate this issue further, let's look at a play from the same drive just a few plays later. It's 3rd and 16 at the 42-yard line. There's a minute left in the first half, so Wilson's only job here is to gain enough yards to get his team in field goal position. Obviously, if he can convert on 3rd and 16, that's even better, but remember, gaining enough for a field goal on this down and distance is definitely good enough. Let's see what happened. On the defensive side, the Giants are dropping 8 into coverage, and they're trying to protect for a throw at the first down. That's why there are 5 guys by the 26-yard line. Seeing that, and seeing a giant hole between the 40-yard line and the 27-yard line, literally a 13-yard gap, this should have told Wilson to throw the ball underneath. He has Metcalf wide open over the middle of the field. A quick pass to him would have gotten his team enough yards to kick a field goal. Watch what Russell Wilson did instead. He ignores the obvious player that he should have thrown the ball to, he scrambled outside the pocket, and then he threw a lame duck pass to his running back that would have gotten a maximum of -1 yard. That's how this play ended. Do you know how much this play really bothers me? Wilson literally passed up on 3 points for God knows what reason. Now, I know a bunch of people will look at the tight end up the seam, but based on this situation, I'm more than fine with Wilson getting the ball quickly to Metcalf here. We only need 5 yards at a bare minimum. Regardless, this last play was extremely painful. Honestly, the entire game against the Giants was really bad. The Giants had plenty of openings, Wilson had enough time on a number of these plays, but unfortunately he was pretty awful in this one. For some reason, the variety of coverages and the post-snap rotations into a 2-eye shell really bothered him. That combination really threw him off. Before we move on, I want to show you one more play that should really piss you off. This could very well be the worst play I've seen in a while. I honestly don't know anymore because so much of this game was just bad. It's 1st and 10 at the end of the 3rd quarter. The Seahawks are down 9 and the ball is at their own 42-yard line. A big play here could help them recover enough yards to get them back on the path to winning this game. With a single high safety deep, the Giants actually ran a cover 2 cloud coverage post-snap. This, like some of the other plays I've shown, it featured a late post-snap rotation that really screwed with Wilson. After he hit the top of his drop, he had a clean pocket. He first started by looking at DK Metcalf on the left. With his deep corner route running up the left numbers, it's pretty easy to see that he was covered on this play. The cornerback had clear outside leverage and he was sitting over the top of this route to shut it down. The second player Wilson should see is Tyler Lockett over the middle of the defense. He has a one-on-one against his defender, and I'm honestly surprised that Wilson didn't take the shot. I've seen him make this exact throw into this exact coverage 1,000 times, however, for some reason he didn't take it. While that non-throw was a bit surprising, Wilson not seeing a wide open dig route was even worse. The backside receiver is sitting wide open at the 42-yard line. The deep safety over the top is 15 yards away, and the underneath zone linebackers have more than 10 yards of cushion as well. Unfortunately, Wilson simply missed it. He never saw that his receiver was wide open on what could have been an easy 25-yard gain. Now, what makes this even worse is that Wilson took a 15-yard sack instead. This play is inexcusable. This was a single play that lost his team a net 40 yards simply due to his lack of vision. This one really hurt the Seahawks. Moving on, while I think Wilson was the main cause of many of the Seahawks' problems in this game, he's not the only one at fault. The offensive line, which isn't healthy right now, certainly factors into the equation. Also, some faulty play calling by Brian Schottenheimer and Pete Carroll was definitely an issue too. I don't want to spend a ton of time talking about the confusing as hell punt at the 37-yard line, but that does need to be addressed. Jason Myers has plenty of leg to make that kick. He's already made a 61-yarder this season. Now, I know Pete Carroll has said that the wind was a factor in this decision, but I still believe you have to trust your kicker in this situation. Obviously, we have to give a shout out to the defense for forcing a safety after the punt, but I still argue that a field goal was the correct call on that one. Now, going back to Brian Schottenheimer, there was a play in the first quarter that I want to talk about. It was the 3rd and 4, and I don't totally understand the play call on this one. Before the snap, you have a trips look on the right, and you have DK Metcalf solo at the bottom of your screen. The Seahawks ran a hitch post dig concept where the running back leaked into the flat as a check down. Against a single high safety, Wilson can first look at the hitch route of the numbers. If he's covered, then he can now move on to the post route by the tight end, followed by Metcalf on the dig from the outside. If all 3 of these are covered, then Wilson can find his check down in the flat and hopefully pick up the first down. Now, on surface, this play call is great for 1st and 2nd down, or even a 3rd and long given the situation. What I don't get is why this was called on 3rd and 4. This is a longer developing play where it requires one of your first 3 receivers to win one-on-one. With Tyler Lockett injured, I don't fully understand how you can trust Jacob Hollister or Freddie Swain to win here. This doesn't totally make sense to me. The other thing that confuses me about this play is the depth that Swain ran out of the slot. He ran a 12-yard hitch on 3rd and 4. So either he ran the wrong route because Wilson was already looking in his direction after his 3-step drop, or this was just a poorly designed play. Regardless, the first 2 routes on this one were definitely covered. Meanwhile, Metcalf at the bottom of your screen ran his dig, and he was covered perfectly by the Giants bracket underneath. Now, at this point in the play, you can argue that Wilson should have gone to his running back, but the pressure was already in his face, and he was sacked for 11 yards on this one. My issue on this play and some of the other play calls that I saw was that I don't think the team game plans as well to what I think they should have given the situation. They have their set plays featuring a lot of crossing routes, and they also have their one-on-one man-beating routes that are really effective against various teams. But I do feel like they should use more stacked and bunch formations along with pre-snap motions in order to create more mismatches. I think these could be very beneficial. I also think you can add in things like tempo, a more quick game that I think they've gotten away from in order to throw off a defense. I feel like the Seahawks don't do this nearly as much as they should. Now, this isn't meant to trash Brian Schottenheimer or anything like that. In fact, I think he's actually really underrated as a play caller. I feel like the vast majority of his game plans have been pretty solid, but they do rely on Russell Wilson to make plays when nothing else is open. You compare that to an Andy Reid or Kyle Shanahan system, and I feel like there are some significant differences here. Now, with that being said, there is definitely no excuse for how Wilson is playing right now. He missed on a lot of throws with just pure inaccuracy. Some of his games over the past few weeks have been really poor. To show this, check out the difference in his stats between the first 7 games and the last 5 on your screen. There has been a pretty significant drop off in all of his stats. A big drop in adjusted net yards per attempt, a pretty big drop in completion percentage over expectation, and just generally speaking, Wilson hasn't looked the same. I really do feel like the issues with pressure plus all those post-snap rotations into a 2-high shell have really been screwing with this process. Overall, and to wrap up this video, the Seahawks really need to get their act together. If they want to have a legit shot at making a Super Bowl run, Wilson has to be better than he is right now. When looking at their next 4 games featuring the Jets, Washington, the Rams, and the 49ers, these initially didn't look horrible on paper. However, I'm very concerned with some of them right now. Washington is definitely one of them. They have one of the best defensive lines in the NFL, and their use of 2-high shells playing cover 3 and cover 4 could give the Seahawks a lot of problems. The same can also be said for the Rams too. That team is getting really hot at the right time, and Seattle needs to be ready for that matchup that'll likely decide their division. If the Seahawks want to secure a playoff spot, they need to win at least 2 of their next 4 games. In my opinion, that all starts with Russell Wilson. If he can adapt better to what we talked about in this video, the Seahawks will always have a fighting chance. Well, that's all I have for you in this one. I just want to thank you so much for watching, and make sure you subscribe and like this video. If you want to support this channel directly, feel free to follow the link to my Patreon account as well. Thanks again, and for my latest updates, you can follow me on Twitter at SamuelRGold.